And welcome, Tellor community. Today is December 15th, 2020. Yeah, it's almost Christmas time here. Things are going great. Thank you, Mike and Brenda, and kind of everyone else for taking the call last week. I know I couldn't be on, but from what I hear, it went really well. So, but happy to be back. Yeah. So it should be a nice quick call today, answer some questions, talk about some things we're doing. The first piece, so the big updates that people keep asking about in the Discord, it's going to be, I think we're dubbing it now. Has it been officially named JG? I think JG named the branch. We're calling it V2.6. We're debating 2 point something else or VX or something else. But yes. I think V2.6 is what it has been dubbed. The basics of V2.6 are we've been having some issues with mining recently in Tellor, so the difficulty has been pushed really low, and it's basically just a proxy for the gas price on Ethereum. It was not our original intention of Tellor to have basically mining rewards be determined by the gas price and your ability to sort of look at the mempool and calculate that out, and we don't want that to be the case. So there's a simple fix. We're just making the difficulty now based upon the first 4 submissions versus the 5 submissions. That 5th submission is actually, it's going to be purely, we're just going to kind of own the fact that it's not constrained by difficulty. It is going to be constrained by the Ethereum gas price. And so it'll be like one of the slots is like a pure staking node, if you will. You actually don't need to solve any, you still have to stake it, but you don't actually have to solve any proof of work to get it done. And that's, there's some discussions on the GitHub and in the Discord if you want to go look at that a little bit deeper. Long story short,
announcements that Tellor moves to proof of stake. It's official.
I think it's actually accurate as far as if you want to make a headline, you can say we moved to proof of stake for the 5th mining slot.
There you go, Slutty. You can yes. Break the news.
Yeah. Obviously, like everything else in the crypto world, it is just a million times more nuanced than that. But you guys can have fun with it. JG, I think, opened up the poll request. Thumbs up. Or is this still on your to-do list today?
Yeah, I actually haven't done it, but I will do it. It's today. No.
By the time you guys are watching the video,
it will be.
Yeah, so there will be a pull request. You guys can see just kind of the work in progress, a lot of the changes, and follow along. We're going to be hopefully trying to save a little bit of gas here and there for the 5th slot and for some other pieces, and then just cleaning up the code. We knew that there was some pieces that we didn't have to have in there, and some other pieces that we could just make better that mainly some of you guys have pointed out. So it's exciting that we'll be pushing this through. Timeline-wise, we should be done with the Solidity this week. Then we'll probably just test it locally for a week, and then test it on Rinkeby for a week, and then probably put it up to a vote for you guys. So probably about 3-ish weeks out from a vote, just kind of giving some broad timelines for everyone so you can plan around it. But, we also didn't want to do a vote on Christmas or New Year's. We know that a lot of people might be out for the holidays or something like that, and we didn't want to force you all to be voting with Tellor. But if you are on a centralized exchange, now is as good of a time as ever to pull off your funds so you can vote on Tellor. Not to mention you should just pull them off in general, but
it should be the least of the reasons to get them off a central exchange. But this would be a good one if you're still debating whether or not to keep them on an exchange.
Yeah, 2021 can be the year that you officially abandon centralized exchanges.
Took control of your keys.
Yes. So that one's really exciting. Other kind of smaller news would be we have a minor release probably coming out. Krasi, what do you think we'll do a release cut a branch and cut a release next week, sometime the end of this week.
We can do, yeah. Let's call it next week.
Call it next week. Yeah. So there will be there's a few breaking changes for you miners. The biggest ones, it's just going to be, so the indexes.json file is going to be changing, and then also it's just going to be the structure. It's going to be the exact same pieces. It's just how we formatted it. It's going to be hopefully a little bit more. It actually fits with JSON parsing libraries in Golang. And then the other one is, if you still have your private key or if you still have your private key in your config file, we're going to force you to take that out. So you're going to have to put that in a .env file so you can't accidentally send it in your config file. And then same with, we're going to move your Impura ID also into a config file. So those are just some things that are into an env file. Just kind of best practices for security. We know that people have had issues in the past with sending those around. So at first we had implemented some of these changes and allowed you to still be irresponsible and responsible. What you could be responsible, but you could also be irresponsible. And now we're removing the ability for you to be irresponsible from the miner. So just be ready for that.
You guys like the children you are.
Yeah, but so it will be like a breaking release, but it's also one of those releases you don't have to do. Like, it's not like if you don't do it, everything you're not going to be competitive. Everything's going to break. Like, it's fine. This is just cleaner, better code. So you should update, move along with things. But we're making a lot of good changes in there. If you haven't been following the miner repo, you can see there's tons and tons of issues that are open, and then they're just like being cycled through because we're actually doing them, and other people are starting to open them, and it feels, thanks to Crossy's help, a lot of it, and even JG, like, people are working on them and getting it done. So it's like a real big boy project. So it's exciting.
And here's maybe the place to mention that we finished a Gitcoin bounty, and as part of this, we did a complete refactoring of the docs. So they're much cleaner and easy to follow. And also another thing for people running Tellor as a miner is to look at the change log when they upgrade, because we keep this up to date. This is part of the docs now. So when you upgrade, look at the change log. That's quite important. We will list all of the breaking changes there that are relevant to the users.
Yep. Thanks, guys. And then Mike, any updates on your side?
So we have a couple of hackathons that are still ongoing. I'm actually having a meeting right after this call to sort of go over some of the submissions for the Encode Club hackathon. So I'm really excited about that. It sounds like we've gotten a ton of interest at that hackathon, and so but again, I'm going to have that call in about 30 minutes. So I'll let you guys know next week how that's going. Other than that, I thought we could mention to you guys, because we could use some feedback. We've been talking about this for a long time. We were just brought up the idea right before this call. For those of you who don't know, Nick and I did a podcast back before Tellor was a thing, called the Daxia podcast. They're still on YouTube. There's still some good content on there if you guys want to dig through those, but we always toyed around with the idea of bringing that back. And so we're thinking about it now, like doing some sort of like monthly thing. Obviously we don't have the time for a full-time podcast, but we're thinking about bringing it back, and we're thinking about what kind of format we would do. So we would love some community input on it, on what kind of show you think we would do well with, and just any ideas we're open to. We think it could be good. We have much more connection in space than we did before Tellor, as you can imagine, and much more of a reach and pull, and so we could leverage that. And you've seen a few projects do something similar, and it's an effective, not just a business development thing you can do, but it's good for the space in general, and it's fun. So let us know what you guys think.
Cool. Yeah, the Tellor crypto show will be
No, a spin-off.
you can start at some point.
Nice self-promotion.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of it for announcements. I think the other announcement is coming out today, I believe, is we're publishing an article. So the article is, what was the final title? Did you guys edit it?
It's just I think it's just going to be subjectivity in oracles right now.
Yeah, so the basics of the article, we had been getting a lot of questions. So there was, whether it's API 3, DIA, you recently saw the Coinbase hack where, the Coinbase Oracle. These are all oracles that are basically just the ability of you read an API. So you have a centralized API that is basically signing prices and putting them on chain. And people are saying like, this is the future of oracles. This is where the whole space is going. Like like why would anybody use Tellor whenever you can just simply look at the Coinbase API directly? And we sort of had always known the answers ourselves, but I wanted to write up a piece that just kind of explained to you guys our thinking on how we designed an oracle and what the oracle problem actually is. Whenever you look at just the ability to read an API, that's not really a complete oracle solution. Sure, you can use just reading an API as that, but as you saw with the recent compound hack, if the API is incorrect, it can go down. Your whole system sort of fails, and you have to plan for that. And then also you can so maybe you could use multiple ones, but also if you specify very specifically, like Compound did, this is the price of DAI on Coinbase. Well, that's actually a problem, because now somebody knows and can probably very easily calculate out how much it costs to throw the price on Coinbase. Tellor, we built things a little bit differently as far as whenever we say like the price of Bitcoin, the miners are actually allowed to submit prices from a whole number of different sources, and we do have example ones in the files for them in the miner, but they're allowed to use whichever ones they want. And the idea is that it's a community consensus around what is the price of Bitcoin. Because there's a difference between what's the price of Bitcoin on Coinbase, what's the price of Bitcoin on Coinbase's, according to Coinbase's API, what's the price of Bitcoin. Those are three different sort of prices, and you want to make sure that you're getting the right one, and you always sort of need this ability to say, hey, that's not right. So you always need some ability in some community or some person who's able to say, that's not right, let's fix it and make it right. And building things that can actually do that, that's kind of the oracle design that I think is actually going to win out. And yes, it's slower, but it's one of the ones that it relies on this community consensus, and you're not going to have just some fancy code API reader on the chain that can magically do something to give you an oracle. It's just never going to work like that. So that's what this article is. It should be a nice, easy read. So enjoy and let me know what you guys think. Happy to answer any questions on it. So cool. Mike, back to you. Would we like to do questions?
Oh, yes. Okay, so we have just a few again. The first one is, who's your next hire going to be? Well, funny you should ask. We just decided to hire a new member of the team today. We haven't pushed out an announcement on Twitter yet. We were going to do that probably tomorrow. But
so we can intro him next week.
We will intro him next week, and there probably will be a tweet between now and then. But yeah, I guess we could say he's a front end developer and a designer. So
yep.
it would really round out the team fully. And he's someone we've been working with on the side for quite a few things. And we're just really excited to sort of loop him in on a much more consistent basis with this. So we're really happy about that. But there's gonna be much more information in the next couple of days. There's one in the chat.
I'm a bit suspicious about this question. It happens right just before we hired somebody. Like, it's
Probably
like somebody's doing some trading with some inside information.
Yeah, or maybe it was him.
Yeah, maybe he's like, "Are you you guys gonna hire me?"
Okay,
question was
here's the answer.
I just told him like 30 minutes ago before the call started, and so
Yeah, he probably asked and wanted to know.
yep. There's a question in the chat. We'll take that one. Is it a major concern or red flag that none of the major dApps have selected Tellor as an oracle? I think launch was 1 year ago. Sincere inquiry and hodler. Thank you for your question. I think I wouldn't say we don't feel it's a red flag. I mean, of course, we're always concerned about the speed to which we gain usage. And we definitely felt it would happen a lot faster than it has been. We're confident on what we're working on, and we're frustrated that we can't share a few things because we've gotten these questions all along the way. Even after the first month, we were getting these questions about like, you've been launched for 1 month. Where are all the users? You know, like, so we're used to it and we've been working hard on it. That's all we can really say at this point. I think there is, of course, a little bit of disappointment, more so in the space in general. Maybe that's even a strong word, like, because we understand that it's hard for these. Everybody's worried about their own protocols, and sometimes the Oracle, sometimes they make concessions and don't care about the Oracle being centralized for now, and then it becomes like a waiting game, working on their timeline, and that's why we've worked hard to try to push a narrative and push education in the space. And sometimes you have to wait it out. Maybe we're early to the market, and the market wasn't ready for it. But we've seen that this year majorly change. Oracles have become really a thing just in the last few months. So hold in there. We are, and we're working hard, and we're confident that we'll have some good news for you soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it is always frustrating, and we're working hard to sort of make the system better kind of every day. I do always ask people to be patient, just because code takes a long time. Even if we were launched a year, I would probably say it's like, when did we actually come on the DeFi radar? Like in the past 6 months, as far as people had actually heard about Tellor.
Beginning of the summer.
Yeah, it's been, like we were of course trying to reach out to people, but reaching out directly isn't as powerful as people knowing you. So if a team just heard about us 6 months ago and they're starting to build an app, you should expect like, okay, well, it's probably going to take 6 months to a year for that project to launch. It's just normal Solidity time frame for launching a project. So
education takes time. All of these articles that we're publishing should help as well.
Yeah.
And events occur, like every time one of these things, with like the compound thing or the BZX stuff or anything that just gets people asking the right questions, like, was this an Oracle attack? Wasn't it an Oracle attack? How could we, improve on this? You have to wait for those growing pains to happen, and those ultimately lead, in our mind, to Tellor as an option. So it just takes time. We want it to go faster too. So but thank you for your question. We appreciate. We'll always answer this question, no matter how many times it comes up. We're not afraid of it.
Yeah, and I mean, and you always just want to always have the right balance between taking a long time and getting the product right, because getting the product right usually it it matters almost way more, because like I remember for the longest time like waiting on Dai to launch. Like it was supposed to launch for like a year and it just felt forever. And same with like multi-collateral Dai was never coming. Like that was a dream, and same with like, ETH 2.0, like we're currently in the stage where like it's never coming. And, like, of course we're all sort of cynical at this point, but then at the same time, like if you actually pull it off, what's going to happen is people look back and they forget all about it. Like nobody cares that it took you a year and a half extra to get it right. Like you actually got it right, and it's working, and your people care. So it's much more about you obviously don't want to miss the whole boat, because if the whole space shifts and things like that go away, then the regulators come down on everyone hard in 3 years. Like you want to make sure you got out the door by then. But as long as you sort of hit the time frame right and have a great product, people are super forgiving about it, and people usually forget your mistakes, especially early on. So anyway.
Cool. All right, so the next question is completely in Chinese, and so I'm going to have to use our trusty little translator we have here.
怎么样有效控制通胀，保持币价稳步上升？现在预言机这么多，拿什么去竞争？
Oh, that's an easy one. Oh.
Yes. What do you guys? Anybody can take this one? Sally? So it's translated to how to effectively control inflation and keep currency prices rising steadily. And the second part of the question is, what are so many oracles competing for now? You want to take the inflation question, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I can take the inflation one. Usually, inflation in a lot of ways, like the idea that you're using inflation will usually push down the price. So I'm guessing you mean supply inflation. So you print more tokens, and there's more tokens going after the same amount of value, so the price should go down. But that's why, I've spoken a lot and kind of written some articles even on, you want to make sure that inflation is actually used for something. So if the inflation, like there's inflation in Bitcoin, you have inflation that leads to the security of the protocol. Inflation is a really good thing, because if you didn't have that inflation, the whole protocol would probably be worth a whole lot less, so the price would go down. So as long as you're using that inflation and the benefits of the inflation in order to grow the use of it, whether it's the security or people utilizing it, if that's greater than kind of the dampening effect on the supply, then it's a good thing. So yeah, it's always tough to balance, usually because like it's really hard, because anytime you sort of adjust inflation levers, it's not something that hits the market really quickly. So if you lower inflation nowadays, like you can expect that it's going to hit kind of the pricing of it in a year or two. So you're like, it's really hard to sort of steer these things. This is it's a problem that the Federal Reserve and central banks all across the world face, that how do you sort of steer an economy correctly on inflation whenever it's such a blunt tool for trying to go after it?
Yeah. And the second part about what oracles are competing for now, the way I translate that question in my head is, I think really, the easy answer is that we're competing for product market fit or for users, but I think we're really competing over the narrative. And the narrative about, and this really ties into this article I hope you guys all read, what is good data, what is truth, what is secure or not, and what is decentralized or not, and what is decentralized enough. And I think everybody has their own narrative around that story. Chainlink has their narrative about high quality APIs and this sort of thing. And we have our narrative about, the subjective community deciding the truth, as long as the incentives are aligned. And I think we're well positioned to win that battle of narratives. I think ultimately it will be a battle of story. and we're crafting ours, and they're doing the same. So that's my answer for that. We have another question in the chat from Zelantis. Speaking of space shifting, seems like proof of stake is in the future. Will Tellor make a move? Well, you came in a little late, or I don't know if you heard at the beginning, but we do have a proof of stake slot in our miner. But I think proof of stake is potentially in the cards. I know, Nick, you've mentioned it a few times. I don't know if you want to add anything, or if anybody else has any thoughts on proof of stake, but
yeah, I mean, it's sort of having like staking mechanisms. It's always, like we're not really a layer one, so ours is just different in general. But we'll probably move away from the proof of work piece at some point and move into more of a actually do work with a staked piece. Whether you want to call that proof of stake or not, we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's not nearly the same type of questions as being a layer one, deciding on what model to use.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it with questions. I mean, we have one more, but it just says Spuddy. So maybe Spuddy, you can translate that. That's a really very deep question. What is
There's
Spuddy?
one more about Nexus Mutual.
Oh, there is. That's thanks for seeing. I don't know how there's so few. I don't know. I skipped that one. This one's about the CEO of the NXM or Nexus Mutual getting hacked. If you guys didn't hear, there was a hack. Somehow someone got control of what's his name? I forget his name.
Hugh Carp.
Yeah, Hugh
Carp, yeah.
He used MetaMask, which essentially tricked him into sending some
signing a transaction.
the wrong address. So and that's how I understood the hack. But
They stole what, like $8 million?
$8 million of
Personal wallet.
that was a big surprise to me. I was like, oh wow, Hugh had $8 million of NXM.
Yeah, that's you'll be disappointed if you steal Tellor's team's wallets. We're not quite sitting on $8 million worth of our own token, unfortunately.
So the question is, should they have forked to get back the money?
I don't even know if they're allowed
I
to.
don't think they can. Yeah. Oh, you mean fork the token and get the money back?
They could fork their token and like give them back some money.
No, that would be weird. I think. I'm against forking it. For saving one guy, especially one guy that had it, like
Nexus
almost.
Mutual Classic.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fine, but I don't think. I think they actually are going through the correct way there. We should call law enforcement, and because it's an actual crime that happened. So I don't think they should solve by forking the token, and that's it. So
where did you fall, JG, on the whole ETH versus ETH Classic thing?
I'm mostly with ETH. It's funny because I actually start like following the space right at that time, but I think it's generally like community itself. So if they back then the people decided it would be better for the ecosystem and for the space to fork, so be it. I don't think rules should be imposed. Like I don't mean if the rules won't apply for a situation, maybe we should change the rules and that kind of stuff. So I'm all for like forking this sort of case. But I think it's weird. Like if there was a hack that impact like all holders of Nexus Mutual token, then I would be all for it. Like why not? So, but since it's just one guy, I kind of feel it's not the right thing to do.
Cool.
I'm sort of, I understand. I feel like I see the argument on both sides, and I really don't know where I fall personally.
Yeah, I'd say usually if the team gets so rich that you have higher than $8 million worth of the owned token, the protocol will probably be better off if like you just deleted all of their tokens in general and forced them to work harder on the protocol. Because I feel like that was like a problem with a lot of early projects in the space is they did ICOs, the founders got ridiculously rich, started VC funds and things like that, and then
Yeah.
the protocols took 2 years, 3 years to get built, and they were done half-assed. So this would,
Yeah.
it might be a bit, yeah, it might.
I will delete 100,000 of your tokens every day until you launch.
Oh, that's kind of a cool
Yeah.
fish I would like to see. Which project's gonna be deleted next?
Yeah.
No, I think we should totally do that as Ethereum. Like, it would be cool, like, if you had more community consensus, like on the ETH chain. Like, it might be like a cool thing if it was much more like anarchic in terms of like, let's kick Tether off. Like, they're wasting our gas prices and we don't like them on our chain. Like, get off, or we're deleting your tokens and all your history. I don't know. I know
it's
it's
also a bit dangerous in a way, right?
it's super dangerous, but it would be fun.
It'd be just mob mentality.
Yeah, yeah. There should be a chain, like, well, because there's like a difference with, yeah. You could have like two different chains. One's where it's like super DeFi mob mentality. So I feel like it's already there in a lot of ways, but you know, anyway. Okay, we're getting off track. Anyway, it was a great call, everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. Yeah, I think it was. Next week we'll introduce you guys to the new hire and hopefully have some more great news for you all. So thanks everyone, and talk to you next week.
Adios.